This is not my first time making this take of this video because I realized how much I wasn't concentrating on my actual speaking part of it, and more so just trying to remember the information. But this time that I've gone through it, should be able to speak a little better and more personally. This biography, funny story. I actually know already almost everything about William Carey's life because I studied him as a kid with my parents. They were both very conservative and Baptist themselves, and I don't remember why, but I just know everything that happened within William Carey's life, and for the most part, I remember watching movies and so forth. Anyway, I'm going to dive right into it and start with his biographical information. He was born in 1761 in Paulsbury, England. He was born in the oldest of 5 children. He had working class parents who were weavers. They weren't rich, but they weren't poor at the same time. He went to a church in England, but at the age of 18, he felt led to leave that church and start attending another congregational church where he met his wife, Dorothy. And his wife, when they married at the age of 20, she didn't actually know what she was marrying herself into. She didn't realize what was to come in the rest of his life and how his drastic change in calling would end up taking them together. So at this time, he wasn't completely experienced or felt confident in his spiritual work and where his position was. Uh, but he spent a lot of time getting himself affiliated with a church called Olney in England in 1783. He was baptized at this church. It was a Baptist church. And 2 years later, he actually ended up leaving and moving to Moulton. And there he started speaking to, as a pastor for a smaller congregation, a Baptist congregation. And this is where he started hearing first about missionary endeavors and actually going and doing missionary work. And it just drew so much interest of him to do this, and he started reading up on all these people who were dedicating their entire life to going across to areas that aren't reached and spending all their time to spreading the gospel to the people that can't hear it. And he took so much interest into it and study that he started to feel call, and he somehow got concentrated and felt called to go to India. uh, this was a rather difficult process for him because it wasn't as simple as just saying I'm going to go to India. There's a lot of funds that are required of it, and he didn't have the funds in the beginning. He tried going to ministers and having meetings with them, but no one would actually get behind him. At this time, he started writing a lot about the possibilities of what mission work can do and opportunities, which drew him a lot of attention. And through this attention and notice, he started what he called I had to write this down, the Particular Baptist Missionary Society. And through that, he ended up actually raising the funds to do and pursue his dream of making missionary work possible. And so through this, he made the difficult decision to go to India, and he was the first missionary to actually reach this part. It was a difficult decision basically because there was no turning back. This was it. His whole family had to move, and it was because it was such a difficult voyage. There was no going back. It was a one-way street basically. He felt completely led to spread this gospel, so he dove right in and he learned their language and their culture. He ended up making translations of scriptures, both the Old and New Testaments. One of his major accomplishments, he translated the entire Bible because he learned, I think it was 30 something languages in his lifetime, and he made whole translations of, scripture, the whole Bible, a dictionary, and he did a lot of other writing work, basically, which were works for other missionaries in communities to read. And basically, if they had a huge interest in the missions, this was the prime example of what they basically needed to do, and what kind of great possibilities were out there. he goes through several milestones in his life. I remember this is what stood out to me the most as a kid. Uh, First, his son dies, and then his wife basically dies because she almost goes insane. And I didn't quite fully understand the impact that this had on him and how much of an ultimate sacrifice he made. He was basically right when he had everything, was losing everything during this most time. He could have strayed away from God, but he did whatever was required of him, and he made that ultimate sacrifice and just kept on his path. He made many accomplishments in his life. He started the whole missionary communities. He was the prime example, and he got his title, the father of the missions, because of this, because he's setting the example for the rest of our generations in missionary work. He made all of those translations and scriptures and his knowledge in languages and their culture, and he was such a remarkable man. Carey was. He is the prime example for anyone to follow if they're interested in missionary work. Even if they're not, I just think it's super important for someone to actually read up on, not just, it's a different experience reading it rather than hearing someone tell you about it or watching a movie, because they don't get the authenticity and the actual personal writings and so forth. Anyway, sadly, he ends up dying in 1834, I believe, and that comes to an end of his whole missionary endeavors. But through his huge, remarkable life, he is the prime example for basically missionary work in other countries.